Assalamu alaikum, marhaba. Welcome back once again to my world of Instagram conversations. How is everyone? Guys, like always, I am back once again with a special guest, with a special topic. You know, I like to empower, I like to educate, I like to support. I want to spread awareness. I want people to know that they don't need to blame themselves all the time. Sometimes they need to see that they are not wrong. And this can only be established if we step out of our comfort zones, and if what we learn from our experiences, we share it with people so that we can impact lives and share and make other people's lives more easier. uh, my core subject is abuse, and especially verbal abuse, and I think the more I talk about it, the more uh, feedback I get. That thank you so much for doing this. First of all, I want to thank you all for giving me all the love, for giving me all the support. You guys have encouraged me, supported me, and brought me to a place where I am now launching my very own first program for you all. And I'm super excited for you because I've been working really hard for it. I have been working with so many people and have learned so much, not just through my experience, but through other people's experiences. Guys, like always, today I have someone special come in, and without any further delay, let me bring her on board. And okay, sorry. And we will take it from there. Yeah, she's in the house. There we go. We are going. We're excited. Hello
Hi.
there. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. So before we dive in our conversation, can we have a little of your introduction, please?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Adriana. I am based out of Toronto in Canada, and I'm a life coach. I help people who have suffered from narcissistic abuse, and I help them to heal and, figure out that they actually can live life on their own terms. And we deal with the emotional and physical chronic pain symptoms that come with that kind of abuse.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, what inspired you to partake on this specialize in narcissism?
My life, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
Uh,
initially I was only going to help people with chronic pain because I had chronic pain for 4 years and it was an absolute nightmare. It was a disaster. And I found out about the mind body connection and that, the pain can actually be healed by expressing repressed emotions.
hmm.
And so that's initially what I started out with. That's what I thought I was going to do, like help other people with their pain. Like, I don't really want to step out of my shell and talk about like trauma and so cute and about, like my personal life, narcissistic abuse, all that kind of stuff. But eventually I started realizing, like, you know what? No, this is a bigger problem than what we think it is. So maybe let me start opening up a little more. And because, like, it's a very specific type of abuse, like, it's very calculated, it messes with your mind a lot. And that was basically the cause for me to have the repressed emotions to begin with. So that's pretty much why I decided, you know what, let me get more specific. And because I can help anyone with chronic pain, like, really, but when it comes to narcissistic abuse, there's like so many little like details about it that it's really hard to wrap your head around, like, how you can actually heal from it. So I decided, you know what, I was raised by a narcissistic mother. I dated several narcissists in my life. I had horrible workplaces. Like, I was just surrounded by them for
Wow.
the majority of my life. And I guess that makes me an expert.
Right, definitely.
Right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
decided, you know what, let me specifically help these people because I wish I had that type of help when I was going through my stuff. So, yeah.
That kind of resonates with me because a few years ago I was reading up just about verbal abuse,
Mm-hmm.
just being in an unhappy place. And narcissist was the first thing that came in the Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading about it, and it just took my attention. And then I went on and on and on for months. And then right after that, I moved back to my country. So I was living in US for 7 years.
Okay.
And those 7 years, I didn't visit my country. So
Mm-hmm.
I moved back, and I couldn't adjust here because it was just a cultural shock with though I've been born and brought up here, lived most of my life here,
Mm-hmm.
but those 7 years in USA had changed me so drastically that when I moved back, everything started to annoy me. And I was like, feels like everybody is a narcissist here. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, looks like I'm being a bit, getting too carried away with it. So let me educate myself more. So I really, really went in. Did a lot of online free classes, and you have the tons of video on YouTube and on Instagram. So I really educated myself, and once I had enough knowledge, I started to reach out to my people of my country and ask them, do you know what narcissism means? And they're like, we never even heard the term. And to my shock, people that I look up to, people who I thought that know about everything, knew nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had friends who were coming up to me and saying, I'm having a lot of issues with my husband and blah, blah, blah. And then they were discussing with me, and I was like, maybe you should go read on narcissism. And that's what inspired me, that women in my country are living in shame, in guilt, that
Mm-hmm.
they're wrong. And they need to know that snap out of it. It's not your fault. You're a wonderful person, and you're just stuck with a narcissist.
Right.
And right then I started, and my first conversation was with a therapist, and she's from UK. And I told her, and I asked her, actually, I said, you see, in my country, men are brought up in a way where they're not accountable for their faults. So men can do anything and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody asks them. Or women are told, men are like that, suck it up, or stop being so picky, or stop being so this is the way it's been for generations. Do you know what we went through? So she's like, well, she said, well, there you go. If you live in such a society, you're going to have lots of narcissists in that kind of culture
Mm-hmm.
and society. So while you're feeling so much that everybody is a narcissist, makes sense, because now you're becoming aware of it. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, and she knew a lot about my side of the world. So she said, yes, I know, and they are going to be more narcissist men, even women on your side, because of how toxic your society is. And it really hurt me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a person of faith, and my whole transformation has been because of faith and holding on to God. And if you're a people of faith, how could you be like that? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's so toxic, and it's so, I mean, it just breaks you and it just kills you slowly. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's really sensitive, and yet at the same time, it's really empowering, where I'm trying to help and educate people. Before we started our live stream, I was on your page and I read a post. Now, I can't specifically say it outright, but it said something like where you saw that on Instagram, people are getting a bit overboard. We're calling out a narcissist being a narcissist. Um, could you talk a bit on that? Because I kind of resonated with that as well. So let's talk from that.
Yeah, so my post was
Sorry.
That's okay. My post was actually calling out people saying that narcissists don't exist or toxic people don't exist, and that's not true.
Hmm.
And I couldn't be quiet about it because I've seen, it's not just one specific post that I was referring to there. Over the past like couple of months, I've been noticing this pattern of people who just, they put these posts out saying that like, oh, this person's probably not a narcissist, or narcissists don't exist, or you shouldn't use the word narcissist to describe somebody because like that's like derogatory almost. And I'm just
Hmm.
thinking like, okay, but what about the abuse? Like,
Hmm. Right.
was the abuse not
Exactly.
like derogatory? Was that not like, does that matter at all to anybody? No. Um, so,
Exactly.
right. So
Hmm.
it's just like, and like there were multiple posts about this, about like, oh, it's only you can only call someone a narcissist if they've been diagnosed with it or whatever. And I think that's completely ridiculous, because if anybody knows anything about narcissists, they do not seek out a diagnosis. They
Right.
do not.
Not
They
exactly.
absolutely, right? Like they
They
don't
think there's
have,
nothing wrong with them, so why
exactly.
would they go and get a
Exactly.
diagnosis?
Everybody else is the problem. And
Mm-hmm.
they think that like everyone's either wrong or too stupid or whatever. They just see nothing wrong with themselves. And they're very sneaky about the abuse, right? It's very covert. It's very behind closed doors. And I I don't think the professional field has really caught on to like how much of an epidemic this is, because there is so much narcissistic abuse out there. And I can't tell you how many times I've had, like conversations with clients or just people having discovery calls with me, or people just sending me messages in the DMs just saying that like, they stayed in a toxic relationship. They continued to take the abuse, emotional abuse from somebody because their therapist told them that this person's not a narcissist.
Yes, I've heard that too, and it's so
It's
sad.
so sad. It is so sad. And it even happened to me. Like when I was in therapy before I even knew that my mom was a narcissist. And like this therapist wanted me to bring my mom with me to therapy. So I did. And like my mom was super sweet throughout the whole thing. Like she didn't show the real side of her, of course. So I'm the crazy one. So I had no idea that like she was the issue. I just thought it was me. If I wasn't such a terrible child growing up, if I only could behave better, things could have been better. And then eventually I figured out on my own, thanks to Google, thanks to, reading up on this, that like, oh shoot, my mom's a narcissist. And then, like I would talk to therapists, like new therapists after about it, and they'd be like, oh, well, that's your mother.
My, oh my goodness.
Okay, cool. So this is not for me then.
Right.
This is obviously not working. And like, just not one therapist ever told me to feel my feelings, and that would be the solution to healing, essentially, because you have to feel it to heal it. And I had no idea. And I had chronic pain at this time too. Like while I was in therapy, like no one told me about the mind-body connection. And it's funny because when I told my doctor because I found an app that actually was for chronic pain. It's called Curable. I recommend it to everybody who has any type of chronic pain. And basically, like, I just impulsively bought a 1-year subscription to it because I was just like suffering for such a long time. And I looked into it after I purchased it because I just didn't care. I was just like very like, I need relief, because I was doing everything for my pain. I was getting injections in my face to like try and get the pain to go away. I was doing acupuncture, physiotherapy. I couldn't take medication anymore because I was getting ulcers. Like it was a complete disaster. So I found this app and I started getting better. And then I told my doctor about it, and I was telling him how it's like, the mind-body connection, it's real. It's repressed emotions from childhood trauma. And he literally like looked at me stone-faced. Isn't that something your therapist should have told you about? I'm like, I've been to multiple and not one has told me about this, and no one has told me to feel my feelings. And he's like, all right, well, I guess you're getting therapy from an app then. I'm like, I guess so. Like, I'm tired of looking for new ones. So yeah, I just feel like there's so many layers to narcissistic abuse. And I don't think people understand the gravity of the effects on the survivors of narcissistic abuse. Because for me, it was chronic pain. For somebody else, it could be like extreme, like I had brain fog too, right? But they could have like no pain, but be extreme brain fog and whatever, right? So, I mean, if it's not for people putting out information, like the average person on the street who doesn't have a formal education in psychology, they should be allowed to share their stories, and they should be allowed to, say what they believe is narcissistic abuse, because at the end of the day, every narcissist is different. So what's true for one narcissist might not be true for another one. But there's a big overlap between figuring out what the signs are. So if it wasn't for me finding these lists online of people who have shared their stories, who have talked about, their narcissistic mothers, who have like laid out the signs, I would have probably still been confused. I probably would have had no idea still. So to say that like people shouldn't be making posts about this and only people who are like licensed professionals should talk about this is kind of like a slap in the face for survivors, because people need to know about this and people just need to know.
Yes, and I totally agree because even before I really understood that I was in a toxic relationship, the thing that was bothering me the most was, why can I not validate my feelings? Why is somebody
Right.
coming up and telling me you're too sensitive,
Yeah.
or giving an example, do you know that woman went through this much? Oh, really? How can you have a competition of who's got more pain and who's got less pain? I mean, just becomes more toxic.
Yeah.
And I just busted out and saying, listen, people need to feel what they want to feel. They don't
Yes.
need anybody to validate them that you can't feel that. That's just like killing somebody. So
Yes.
just let them feel what they want to feel. I basically worked on myself. I healed myself. There was
Amazing.
no therapist, there was no coach, there was nothing like you. I was in the darkest, deepest,
Yeah.
ugliest places of my life, and but I didn't give up on myself. Something told me that
Amazing.
don't do that. You are not, you have kids and you're worthy. Don't they? So I kept on fighting with myself while I was trying to deal. And like you said, the trauma, the things you had to go back, revisit,
Yeah.
and I did all of that. And my thing that helped me was, I was praying, and I've never told this story exactly how it happened. It was, I was praying that night and I was begging God. I was sitting on my prayer mat and I was like, God, please help me, because my head is going to, like, explode,
Yeah.
because either I'm insane and crazy, or everybody around me is insane or crazy, because the society is toxic.
Yeah.
Why are they saying this has been going on for generations and this is the way life is? Like, what's going on? Am I becoming crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment I really begged him, and the one thing I said to God was, God, please save me from being oppressed. I'm tired of being oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Just help me out. And I really cried that night, and I kissed my kids. They were sleeping, and I picked up my phone. I couldn't sleep, and I went to YouTube, and I don't know what I searched, but whatever I searched, the first thing that came was Tony Robbins. He was right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just clicked on him. Like you just said, nothing,
Yeah.
just clicked on him. Never knew about him, didn't even know he existed. And he had this motivational sleep, which was like for 5 or 7 minutes. That night was the last night of my life of being the old version of myself.
Amazing.
The next day I woke up and I was totally different. And from that day onwards, I kept on listening to his videos. And then I found Bob, and then I found Marissa Peer. And then I found these people all through YouTube and Instagram who told me, who validated me, that
Yes.
what you're feeling is okay. You have the right to feel.
Yes.
And let's say you're not even in a toxic relationship, you're unhappy, chapter closed, move on. You don't
Yeah.
need to give an explanation. So that
Exactly.
is what I tell people here, because I live in a society where, you see, it's good, anything and everything is good when there is a balance. When there is an extreme towards anything, it's toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So if you and I are friends and we are like all the time like this, never separated, it's going to become toxic somewhere down the lane,
Right.
right? So that's what I think, that I don't think so anybody in my country knows about boundaries. We don't know what boundaries are. We don't know
Right.
how we need to set boundaries. So the family structures and how the society is, it's like everybody's in everybody's business, and we're tagged with, we are family. Okay,
Yeah.
your family, fine.
Yeah.
You're supportive, you give us love and all that, that's all valid. And that's one side of the story. But the other side is, you're toxic.
Mm-hmm.
You are crossing a line that you're not allowed to cross. Why are you
Yes.
doing that? And who's given you the permission? I gave you the permission because you're my family, and everybody around us is doing that. So for me, I think I'd rather lose everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can just save one person and really educate them that you are right, it's worth it. I think
Amazing.
it's worth it, because I think with with the COVID-19, there's been a kind of a sense of awakening for people where people are really frustrated.
Yes.
I hope and I pray that people on my side can awake and break this generational curse,
Yeah.
and realize that neither the God, neither the religion says that family is very important and all the good things that they do is valid, but not to a
No.
place where they're becoming toxic towards you.
Exactly.
That's just really, really bad and unhealthy for yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, have you ever come across a client who's come up to you and said, "Hey, my boyfriend or my husband is toxic, but or narcissist, but I don't want to leave them. Can you help me in staying with them?" And what kind of advice have you given to such clients?
I actually have not had a client like that yet.
Okay,
Usually I
good.
get, yeah, usually I get the clients who they've broken up already and maybe their ex is like trying to get them back. But usually, like, if someone is still with their abuser, they don't really have that insight yet that
Mm,
this is someone they should leave, right? So it's like they're still like enmeshed with the abuse. They're still in that bubble of abuse. And until they actually, like, I'm not for everyone, right? So it's like
right.
whoever, comes to me, for the most part, if they've read my content, they have seen my videos, they've listened to my podcast or whatever, and they know what I'm all about. I'm all about like empowerment and you're ready to heal. So part of being ready to heal is being okay with separating from that person, or actually having separated from that person. So I do sometimes get clients who still live with their family members who are abusive. Like maybe they've been financially abused and they are stuck living at home still, and they don't have the funds necessarily to move out, because, and especially with COVID, like, it's just been a disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, so they're like,
Mm,
quarantined with their narcissistic parents or whoever, right? But for the most part, like, I don't really get relationship people who are still in the relationship. That's pretty rare.
okay. Okay.
But I do get, like, the recently divorced who share children with them, and like, how do
Right.
you
Right. So
deal
they're the trauma
with them?
bond and all that, and that's
Yeah,
how you help them. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I hear you. I hear
yeah.
you. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about, since you see, if you open Instagram and if you search narcissist or narcissist survivors, there's so many out there. And when I talk to people, I think, like I said before, I feel like everybody's a narcissist.
I know,
What
right?
do, what do you think has caused us to come to a point where we see such a long generation that is full of narcissists? Because for me, is that I think that a is the culture, of course, the
Yeah.
culture of the society, the conditioning that, okay, men is superior than you and they can do whatever. And then I think that the other tools that play a role in is just religion, social conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
I think all those factors have added so much to it
Yeah.
that we weren't aware of it. So
Right.
what is your understanding?
So I definitely believe narcissists have been through trauma, right? Like, it's either they've been through trauma themselves and this is their like way of surviving in the world, where they have to be right about everything and they believe their own lies and whatever. Um, or maybe they were overspoiled and overindulged as children, and that's why they have that sense of entitlement. But regardless of why a narcissist decides to be a narcissist, right? Like,
Go to Nano. Sorry,
no
sorry, I'm
worries, no worries,
sorry.
no worries. So regardless of why a narcissist ends up being a narcissist, and honestly, like, I was raised by a narcissist, and I could have taken that path myself, but for some reason,
You
and I
got
can't,
saved.
I guess, right? Like, for
Yeah.
whatever reason, I knew better than to treat other people like crap in order to feel better about myself. So I guess I knew that on some level. So, I obviously had toxic traits. There's a lot of, ways that I treated friends in the past and whoever that I'm not proud of course, but it's part of the learning experience. And, you know, it's whatever reason that a narcissist chooses, because they do choose to be abusive. They're calculating it, right? Like they have enough sense to assess the situation, assess the fact that they want supply from you, and brainstorm ways on how they can receive that supply from their target. So
So
that's a choice.
manipulative.
Yeah. That's being manipulative is a choice. And I don't care what the narcissist went through. They're making a choice to be abusive. And that is not okay. I don't care if it's your mother. I don't care if it's your husband. I don't care if you have 10 children with him. I don't care if it's your grandmother or your best friend, or if you've known this person for a very long time. Abuse is still abuse. And you have every right to protect yourself from that. And the more people out here talking about it, the better. And I think that's why when you do search narcissistic abuse survivors on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube,
Oh my
wherever on
gosh.
social media, there's so much. And I personally don't think that that's because it's a buzzword. It's not.
Exactly,
It's
huh?
not. And that's what people are trying to suggest, that like, oh, narcissist is a buzzword. It's not. I don't think it's a buzzword at all. I think people are starting to wake up. Because like you said,
Yes.
your entire culture is filled with them. My culture is filled with them. Like my ancestors, they are Southern Italian. Like there is
Okay.
so much, oh, but family, you know, all that kind of stuff where it's like family is everything. And, you know, religion plays a big factor in that too, right? Like there's
Yes.
so much toxicity in the Catholic religion, and I'm sure all
Wow.
other religions, right? Like I don't know much about other ones. But there's so much, like they put the fear of God in you, like from such a young
Yes.
age. And it's like, oh, if you do this, you're going to hell.
To
But Jesus,
hell.
yeah, but God loves you anyways. And it's like, that's so confusing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then you
Yes.
combine that with your family of origin who like sticks with these beliefs. And like my mom was born during World War II. So,
Okay.
you know, like
Wow.
my grandfather fought in the war. They were in a very small town in Italy. They didn't have much. And then they moved to Argentina. And then there was the whole revolution over there. And then they
Oh,
moved back to Italy and then eventually to Canada. And
wow.
that is traumatic, right? Like I'm not doubting the fact that my mother had some kind of trauma, like 1000%. Absolutely. I can empathize with the trauma she went through, but I can't empathize with how she chose to live her life after that, because you absolutely have a choice. Like you can be an asshole and treat people like crap, or you can like understand that you didn't like how that felt when people were being terrible to you, and maybe I shouldn't be like that, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? So just
Yes, that
having
makes
that
sense because
ability
and
to
and
like
that
just look
and I
within.
totally agree with you. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, because you know what, when I said that I worked on myself, so when I revisited those moments, and like you said, my awakening and my healing and my self-awareness and self-reflection was that I had wasted my whole life, in general, I'm talking, on always. So basically, I was living on survival mode. So when you're living on survival mode, you think everybody's wrong, nobody
Yeah.
understands you, and blah, 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 all that. And you play the victim card all the
Yeah.
time. So that was my life. So I was playing the victim card, oh, nobody understands me, and
Yeah.
blah, 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 all that. So when I
Oh, you froze.
yeah, somebody
You
was
froze
calling, I
there.
have
Yeah.
to cut that
Oh,
down.
yeah.
So what I did when I revisited my moments where I was hurt was I was not looking at the person who was hurting me. I was looking how I was reacting in those moments.
Yeah.
And that's where the awakening started, and that's where I started to figure out my pattern and my cycle, and how
Yes.
I've been toxic to people who were really supportive and empathetic towards me. And I said, oh my, and it was ugly.
Oh,
Healing is not something like, oh yay, I'm on
yeah.
a healing journey. It it's more painful than the abuse itself, because when you revisit those moments, you actually revisit yourself, and there
Yeah.
are some very uncomfortable moments you don't want to know about yourself.
Totally.
So you have to acknowledge them, and you have to tell yourself and forgive yourself and say, okay, I didn't know anything better, Now I know it. I'm not going to continue that. And I had to reach out people actually and tell them, when we were 16 years old and we was 18 years, they're like, we kind of got over that, and I said, I know probably, but I need to do that. So I own it. So I
Oh,
know that I
amazing.
was right. Yeah. So it was so liberating
Yeah.
because it kind of lifted so much of burden from me. And I was like, geez, why did I wait so long?
Yeah.
Why did I wait so long? So it's an amazing feeling. And like you said you're so amazing that when you are in that kind of situation, you have the choice. So you can either become the asshole, or you can say, okay, no, I'm not going to do this because I don't know anything better. And for people who choose to be the assholes, I'm sorry, they can always come down a path where they can realize that, this is not right, and
Hmm.
they can go back and finish, or just not do that again. I know
Right.
that there is no cure for narcissism.
Hmm.
But I think that if a narcissist was to truly, truly work on himself or herself or themselves, I don't think so that anything is impossible. And we could definitely work and help such people. Because you see, if I had not been in a toxic relationship, or I wasn't with a narcissist, and I read tons of stuff of what narcissists do, is that, let's say if it was my friend, and because they play that game, they
Hmm.
tell me, oh, my parents were like that, and all that game. You empathize with that person. You
Hmm.
don't know that person is a narcissist. So you're like, I'm so sorry to hear that. So if that person can find one person they can confide in and really work on themselves, I think that we could change the fact that narcissism cannot be cured. I think it can be cured. Of course, there has to be tons of study and lots of things. And I know, I don't know if you heard about Dr. Joy. Dr.
Mm.
Joy, yeah. So he basically what he talks about is, he says that your brain is so powerful, okay,
Hmm.
and you basically have different kinds of circuits in the brain. So a person who's normal has a different kind of brain, with
Hmm.
person who has a disability has a different kind of
Hmm.
brain. And he said that you could basically, although he said there's a lot of study going on and all that, but he said that you could actually go inside a person's
Hmm.
brain and rewire
Yep.
and put those circuits in place where they were feeling like a person with depression, they feel a certain way. So there's something loose in their brain, some kind of
Hmm.
circuit. And I'm not being very technical here,
Hmm.
but what he was trying to say was, and then he said that we could just reprogram the brain. And he said that he was 100% sure that they could cure depression like that,
Hmm.
without medication.
Hmm.
So if medicine and science is moving so fast, I think that, and I can be wrong, you can correct me, that the narcissistic brain is kind of like, where there's a disorder, it's kind of like different than a normal person's brain, because there's the empathy thing is lacking, that it doesn't exist
Hmm.
in there. So it's just not the emotion, it's something that is lacking in the brain
Hmm.
as well. So, and on that, I want you to educate people, please, that people, there are some people who are just narcissists, and then there are people who are narcissists, who have the narcissist disorder.
Hmm.
What is the difference, and how would you explain that in very simple terms so the audience
Hmm.
can understand?
Yeah, so I'm not a doctor or anything.
Right,
So
right.
simple terms is
Yes,
all I really have, right?
yes,
So
correct.
every human has narcissistic traits. Like every
Yes.
human. Like we all have our own toxicity, and that's fine, right? But
Right.
a normal person has the ability to, if somebody calls them out on their actions, and if I say something to somebody and they tell me like, oh, that really hurt my feelings, like I don't appreciate that, I would want to understand,
Mm,
right? Like, so I don't
right.
do that again to somebody
Mm,
else. Like, I would apologize, obviously, and it would be like an honest apology, and I would say like, okay, like, thank you for letting me know, first of all, because then I would have not been aware that this is hurtful. So thank you, first of all. And, you know, be able to like look inwards with myself and
mm,
think like, okay, what made me think it was okay to say whatever I said that upset this person, right? And then I do
mm,
my own internal work on that. And in a perfect world, that's what people will do.
Right.
Right? So,
Right.
but someone who's a full-fledged narcissist, like I don't like to use the term narcissistic personality disorder because that's like,
Okay.
to me, that's like a medical thing and that's like that's a diagnosis, right?
Diagnosis. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so people who are narcissists, like I don't see an issue with just calling them narcissists. And because that's what they are. Like they're the victims, the survivors have noticed the pattern of abuse. They've tried to call out, you know, in the narcissist, like, hey, like this hurt, like, can you not do that? And when a narcissist receives this information, they flip it onto the person and they say, no, you're too sensitive, you're crazy, you're remembering wrong, you know, and it's like, you can't reason, you cannot make sense out of nonsense. Like you can't. So whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, it is emotional abuse. And
Abuse.
yeah, it's absolutely emotional abuse. And if you're somebody who's on the receiving end of it, you do not need to continue being in that situation, right? Like you can remove yourself, you can start setting boundaries, you can cut off contact and all that, because at the end of the day, you know, you hear people sometimes say that, oh, maybe they can change if this and this, and I just have to disagree with it, because
Yes.
someone who's a true narcissist, like they don't want to change. They
No.
don't think they need to change. They don't think something is wrong with them. So even if like this doctor that you're talking about is saying that like we can rewire somebody's brain, right? Like by doing the inner work and feeling your emotions, you're already rewiring your brain, right? Like, so for me, because neuroplasticity is legit. Like our brains are very malleable. And when I was in my pain, I did the work in order to get out of pain, not realizing I'd also be healing from narcissistic abuse as I did that, because, you know, it all connected to my childhood and everything. And that rewired my brain. But I had to choose to do that, right? Like I had to decide, like, okay, this is not working out in my life. I'm tired of this. Let me do something else because nothing else has been working. But I had to make that choice on my own. I had to decide on my own. And well, I mean, I was like at the point of desperation where I was in so much pain that I kind of wanted to die. So, you know, I kind of was forced to do the work in a way. So that's, you know, what happened with me. But
Right.
someone who's a narcissist, they're not going to go to this doctor and say like, hey, like, can you rewire my brain for me?
Right.
Because
Right.
yeah, because
Because
apparently I'm an
they
asshole.
actually because they truly believe they're not wrong.
Exactly. They're
They're
not going to
like,
go to a doctor.
you're wrong. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
by
and
giving them supply, we keep fueling them. So for people who hear this message from people that, oh, maybe a narcissist can change, they'll stay. Like, it's just so harmful for people because they will stay in this abusive situation, holding out hope that the other person's going to stay, or that the other person's going to change and be nicer to them and whatever. And it's going to go back to how the beginning of the relationship was. And what people don't understand when they're in that bubble, when they are in the midst of the abuse, is that you're never going to go back to the beginning, that initial, the first love bombing stage.
bombing. Yeah,
When,
exactly.
yeah, like when it's with a significant other, that love bombing, that hooks you in. That makes you feel like you're special. You feel like you're an amazing person. Someone finally sees me for me. Wow, this person loves me after 3 days of knowing me. Cool. Like, wow, because you have like that codependency within you that you just want to be seen. And it'll never go back to that. It will never, ever go back to that. The cycle will keep repeating, and they'll give you little breadcrumbs of it when they try to love bomb you again after they've devalued you and potentially discarded you, and then they want to start the cycle again. And just having this idea in your head when you're on the receiving end of it that this person can start behaving properly and will start treating you with the respect that you deserve is kind of dangerous, because they won't. Like, they will
Yeah.
not treat you well, and
Well,
you need to get yourself away from that situation
as soon as possible.
ASAP. Yeah.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
yesterday.
So I wanted to ask you another question while you were talking. It just came in my head.
Yeah.
Is, do you think that when you said it, and it's so correct, that we are toxic in some normal levels, not like crazy levels. Do you think that this what, I don't know the right word, but do you think that if we were truly open in our communication, where you're, let's say you're, I'm hypothetically saying you and I are friends, and I'm like, you say something that's hurtful, but you say, oh, I will just ignore her, she's my friend. So do you think that slowly builds up where the person starts to assume, and then because of the assumption factor in our heads that, oh well, maybe the toxic cycle starts to go up? So do you think that if people truly started to actually communicating in a dignified, respectful way, that hey, listen, let's not talk about this is kind of like you crossing the line, it hurts me, and the other person truly understands that and respects that, do you think that that would help more at a bigger level, where I think, because I feel that there is such a big gap in whole in communications, while
Mm-hmm.
and especially in messages. Oh my god, somebody messages you and you read it and you interpret it somewhere, and the other
Mm-hmm.
person like, I didn't even mean that, oh my gosh, and there's this whole big fight or this whole big drama going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if people are more open in communicating rather than just making self assumptions about, oh, this person probably means that, so I'll just ignore it, do you think
Mm-hmm.
that would help as a at a societal level, or no?
I mean, it takes two to tango, right? So
Hmm.
both people in that conversation would have to have that understanding and
Hmm.
would have to have that ability to look within and be open to honesty and open to constructive criticism and be willing to put the work in to have that open communication, right? So
Hmm.
that would be like two normal people conversing, right?
Right,
Like
right.
if you're friends with somebody and you don't feel like you can actually like voice to them that whatever they're saying to you is hurtful,
Hmm.
or if you voice that to them and they're completely dismissive of you or whatever, then it's never going to work, right? But
Hmm. Hmm.
and you probably shouldn't be friends with that person
Hmm.
if they
Okay.
don't
Hmm.
care that they're
Hmm.
hurting you, right? So I mean, both people in the conversation would have to care, is what I'm
Right, that
trying to
makes
say.
sense.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So
yes. So
I think people who are not narcissistic, like as
just
a
regular
society,
people.
would be
Yeah.
more than
Okay.
capable of having open dialogues with each other, trying to
Clear communication,
exactly
where
clear the air, clarify stuff,
be
whatever. And
yourself,
yeah,
no
mutual
apologies there.
understanding,
Yeah,
be
right,
vulnerable, whatever.
right.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. But when you're
Right.
dealing with someone who's a narcissist, like they're not going to care. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at the end of the day, it's all trauma. So if we have collectively less trauma as generations continue, then maybe there will be less narcissists out there, because yeah, it's a trauma response. But that doesn't, just because it's a trauma response, it doesn't mean that it's okay that they're like that. And it doesn't mean that
That
people
makes
on the other
sense.
end of it should be taking it from them.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, I would definitely like to add, people who've been through trauma should definitely seek some help, because I think that one of the biggest mistakes I made in my personal life was when I lost my daughter and I was in
Oh,
USA. uh,
I'm
uh
so sorry.
and thank you. There were a lot of nurses, and there were a lot of counselors that came in, and I just moved to USA, so I was very new to the culture.
Yeah.
And a lot of therapists and counselors came in my room, and they were doing the condolence, and they were trying to reach out to me, and I was getting irritated because I was not used to it, but they were trying to help me. And my sister was with me, and she said, they're here to help you, so it's a lot, you're losing a child, you've lost a child, so if you want to talk about it. And I was like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And I never ever healed from losing my child. I thought I didn't have the time. I had another kid to
Oh.
take care of, I had a house to take care of, we just moved here, there were so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And life seemed okay. So life moved down, life seemed okay. But after 4 years I had my son, and that's where the trauma came back.
Mm-hmm.
because now I became a crazy person. Nobody could touch my son. My son couldn't
Yeah.
go out. We were stuck in the house for 4 months, and everybody was saying, "You're crazy." And I'm like, "No, I'm not crazy." And in my head, I said, "I'm trying to protect my son.
Yeah.
What if he gets the flu? What if he gets this, and I lose another kid?"
Yeah.
And it's taken me exactly, now my son just turned 4. It taken me 4 years to actually come to a point to realize that it's okay. I can forgive myself because I did not give myself the permission to heal as a
Exactly.
mother, and I have to apologize my body because the body went through that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So and I realized that, and I know it sounds silly, but seriously, I sat and I said to my body, I am sorry for the loss. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry that I did not address you when you were going through that pain and that trauma.
Yeah.
And I could feel that my body felt so different after that. Like it was answering me back with the emotion that
Mm-hmm.
it's healed, that the
Yes.
wound is gone, and you're
Yes.
in a better place. So I definitely say that if you feel that something is hurt you to a level where you feel traumatized, definitely seek out some sort of help. If you can't reach out medical help, maybe you have a good friend who's going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to that help and try to help yourself, because when you're going to help yourself, you'll be able to give more and better to the world. and
Exactly.
and that's what we need to do, because I think that it's about time that we really started showing up so that we can leave a better legacy and a better generation. I don't want my kids to grow up and say, "Oh, we live in a trauma, toxic cycle of societal crap or whatever." I want them to be happy, and their generation should be of people who are healed, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
Yeah.
I had a few people who were sending some questions for you. Um, I kind of missed them out. Let me pull them over. So somebody saying my mom is a co-independent, but she's emotionally, mentally, physically abusive. Okay, that's not a question. Yes, I don't agree with you. Don't see anything wrong with them. Okay, so there's the question. Can we please also address how co-independents can also be the abusers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it really depends on the situation, right? So without a lot of context, it's hard to address that. But yeah, codependents can totally be abusers as well.
Hmm.
They might try and manipulate someone into staying with them, or like, taking them with them somewhere, all that kind of stuff, just so they're like not alone. So yeah, it's definitely very possible. And
It's
then
just
it
another
just,
tool to control you. It's
yeah,
just a tactic to control you and
exactly.
manipulate you. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
covert narcissists can really do that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they can be like the covert, like you would never know type of narcissist, and
Mm.
they use manipulation and guilt to try and control people. So
Right.
wherever there
Yeah.
is a level of control, like it doesn't matter if you're codependent, if you're, an empath, whatever you're doing that you're trying to get control over people, that is abusive. And,
Mm.
if you get called out on it and you can actually recognize that that was abusive, then that's good. That's
Yeah.
good, being able to
Mm.
recognize it, right? But
Yes.
again, a narcissist because narcissists can totally be codependent too. Um,
Yes. Mm.
a narcissist who gets called out on it, like they're not, they will continue to abuse, because they will just say like, well, my life's been so hard, and like, I just need you to be there for me or whatever, and
Right.
you just feel guilty, and then it just, the crap
I mean,
continues.
I mean, for narcissists, it's just like you bang your head in the wall and you get a wounded, and you tell the wall, and you're screaming at the
Yeah,
wall. The wall's gonna be like whatever. So that's how
exactly. And you're
narcissists are. They're
apologizing
not
to the wall.
the
Yeah.
wall, yeah,
Yeah.
because they're gonna be like, it's your fault. You
Yeah,
bumped into me. It's your fault.
exactly.
So it's, I think it's pointless to even have a conversation with a narcissist,
It is.
because it's
It's
just
going to go
getting
in
back in
circles.
that cycle. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's going to go in
definitely.
circles. There's going to be the word salad. It's going to be like, you're
Yeah,
better
it just
off.
makes it worse. Yeah.
Exactly. You're better
Yeah.
off investing that time in yourself,
Self,
in,
right. Yeah.
discovering why you feel like you need to have that conversation with the narcissist or whatever. Like just looking into your own inner emotions and your, whatever it is that you're repressing, because
Right.
that is going to give you the answer at the end of the day.
Right. And then there's another question. Somebody saying, can you answer why the people who abuse us don't seek help?
They're
Because
not
they don't think
capable.
they're
Yeah, they
they
don't
don't
think
think
they're
they're
abusing
abusing
us.
it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't think they're being abusive. So
Right.
why would
Right.
they seek help, right? They think
Why
they're
would this?
perfect.
Guys, and I can't go any further, so if you have any other questions, you can just post down, and she'll answer. And on this wrap up, I want to ask you, what kind of message, I know there are tons of people who are survivors here right now, what kind of message do you want to give to people who are either stuck in a narcissistic relationship or are on their way on their way of healing journey? What kind of message do you want to give each one of them right now?
So a lot of messages, but
Yes, yes.
I will keep it short. Um, Number one, the most important thing, you're not crazy. You're not crazy, and it was not your fault. Like, it is not your fault that you have been abused. Okay? You know, sometimes we have the traits of a person who gets targeted by narcissists. We have very weak boundaries, but this is how you learn to survive in life, right? If you're not capable of setting boundaries, if you're a people pleaser, all that kind of stuff, that was like a survival mechanism that you picked up probably in childhood, you know, and that's what helped you survive, and that's not your fault, and you can absolutely heal from the abuse. You absolutely 1000% can.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's worth it, because think about the discomfort that you're in right now. Do you want that for the rest of your life? Or are you okay with having some temporary discomfort as you do the work, as you heal, as you move through the emotions that you've tried to throw away and hide from, and then you feel better, right? Like it's up to you, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you absolutely can heal. And you know, someone's asking right now, is it possible to pick up manipulative and toxic behaviors we learn from the narcissist? Absolutely,
Absolutely. Yes.
1000%.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. I picked up manipulative and toxic behaviors myself because I learned them, right? But if you're able to actually see that in yourself and recognize that in yourself, like, you're 10 steps ahead of the game, because you're able to actually look at this and say, like, oh, okay, like, I'm not necessarily an asshole for being toxic and manipulative. It's this is what I learned. This is what I learned
Learn.
because I
Exactly.
thought this was a way that I would survive. So having that self-compassion for yourself when you do make that discovery is huge. And that does not mean that you're a narcissist, because if you're able to actually ask yourself that question and self-reflect like that, like, there is hope for you, right? At the end of the day, the
Definitely.
narcissist, they're going to have a very miserable existence, because they're going to continue never thinking that anything is wrong with them and that the way that they're treating people is not good or whatever. They're going to go through life continuing to believe that they're perfect, and they're never going to make genuine connections with other humans, and then they're stuck being who they are, and that sucks, right? But if
Right.
you're somebody who's recognizing in yourself that, oh my god, I did have toxic behaviors that I learned, and holy crap, I'm doing this to other people, just the fact that you can recognize that you're doing something to other people is a big deal, and
It's a big
is
deal. Yes.
massive, right?
Yes. Yes.
You're able
Yes.
to self-reflect, and
Flat.
that's awesome.
Exactly.
That is awesome. So, like, that is something to celebrate. And wherever you are on the journey, like, just remember to take baby steps, you know, one baby step at a time. You're not going to go from, like, you know, it didn't
Point
take
A to
you
yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It didn't take you
Yeah.
overnight to be in the state that you're in right now, right? Like, that's your lifetime. That's your entire lifetime that has taken you up until this point. So it's not going to take you overnight to, you know, shed all those layers, heal all that trauma, heal all those emotions. It's going to take a while. It's not going to take you decades, but, you know, depending if you work with somebody, if you know what to do, if you can figure out that, you know, it's okay to feel my emotions, because when you've been
Exactly.
narcissistically abused, you are disconnected from your emotions, because you're taught that it's wrong to have these emotions, or you're crazy for having these emotions. So you just repress them, you keep them pushed down. And then, like me, you end up with chronic pain. You know, so
And
it's
anxiety.
and anxiety.
I had
Yeah,
anxiety.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anxiety is part of this. Absolutely. Depression. There's so many parts
Things
of the mind
involved.
body
Yes.
connection. Yeah. and understanding that like it's safe to feel your emotions. And even though society frowns upon emotions, it
Oh my
doesn't,
gosh.
I know it's terrible, but it's literally a part of being human. It is absolutely part of being human, and it's okay to feel. And when you
Right.
realize it's okay to feel and you start to feel better, even though that feeling might
Yes.
be terrible. If it's like repressed anger, repressed fear, repressed sadness, it does not feel fantastic as you're allowing yourself to feel it, but it goes away. And understanding that it does go away. And if you don't judge it and you allow yourself to feel it, it could go away in a few minutes, but it takes a while to get to that point where you realize that and you're able to sit with it in that way.
Yes, yes, and you said it so beautifully. I just add a few words to it. Like you said yourself, when you are in the abuse, it's horrible. Once you move out, I think it gets more hard before
Yes.
it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she said something really beautifully, and that resonated with me so much. That there are two things: fear and faith. uh, you give into fear so much. Remember, fear is not real. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that we make in our minds up.
Yep. It's an
So
emotion.
where so it's an emotion, right?
Yep.
So when if you're giving so much power to fear, you're supplying that fear to grow within
Right.
you. So if you were to just take that fear and just push it towards your faith in anything. I mean, I know there are a lot of people who don't believe in religion and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that has a positive impact on you and you push it towards that, it can go such a long way. And that's what I tell people, that you've lived a life or a decade or whatever, a stretch of time where you were abused, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you survived that. You'll
Mm-hmm.
survive this as well. You just
Yes.
have to stay strong, work on yourself. Like you
Yes.
said, I'll repeat it again. Feel the emotion, cry 10, 20, 30, 1 year if you have to cry, cry.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're done, I can guarantee, I can write and guarantee that you will feel liberated. You
Mm-hmm.
will feel a better person, and you will be so empowered. You will be so
Yes.
empowered that you will say, oh my gosh, why did I say stuck in that place for so long?
Yes.
Because this feels amazing,
Yes.
this feels on top of the world. So for all of you out there who are going through pain, who are going through something, my heart reaches out to you and I pray for you. I hope that our conversation has helped you in some way, and that we see you at the other side, and that is a phenomenal and a beautiful side for you all. On that note, thank you so much for coming on board and
Thanks
sharing
for
your
having me.
wisdom. Yes, and we will stay connected. Like
Of course.
guys, like always, I will tag her after the conversation. Connect with her. She's amazing. She's got tons
Thank
of
you.
information on her page, and you're gonna learn a lot from her. Thank you once again. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourself. Bye bye.
Bye.